Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elizabeth Rogliani, for those of you who don't know me. And today I decided to make a video about what made me change my mind about Trump. What made me get red-pilled, as they say. And no, this is not a reference to the Q movement. First, let me preface by saying that I'm making this video, obviously, not as a born American, but from a foreigner's perspective. Now, some of you might think, why do I care about that? Well, I have lived here for the past 10 years, and there's a lot of people around the world paying attention to what's going on in the United States when it comes to this specific elections. All over Europe and Latin America, they do think whatever happens here is going to affect them there. So I do think that is very relevant. And I have friends from all over the place that have also radically changed their minds about Trump. So I thought it might be worth it to see how someone like me changed their mind, even though I have been living here for the past 10 years. The first 5 years here, I wasn't really paying attention to American politics. I sort of knew what was going on. I knew about Obama was president. I wasn't paying attention to the small details of his government, although I always consider myself aligned to a little bit more of the Republican Party. That changed in 2016. I started to take a way bigger interest when it came to politics. And 2016 was a very different election cycle. It was very far from boring. Scandal after scandal, a non-politician entering politics. My first thought when he entered the race, I thought, this is good. Businessman, this is a change, this is a good change. Where I went wrong though is when I didn't realize the crazy amount of bias that goes on in American media. And not only bias, but purposely misleading the public by taking things out of context to fit a narrative. So for example, that famous clip of Donald Trump mocking the disabled reporter was taken out of context. Originally, of course, I believed that he, in fact, was making fun of a disabled reporter and the way he moved. However, after seeing several clips of him doing the exact same gesture to different reporters, the only common theme was that they were all being caught in lies. And the media knows that. But they wanted to tell a story. And as I said, I didn't realize the American media was biased, and I was using CNN and MSNBC to catch up and get informed a little bit about American politics, the American election cycle, and the campaign trail. And not only that, I was living in New York City going on to a very liberal arts school where many of my friends were very progressive lefty. And so they shared things on social media that made Trump look terrible, the Republicans look terrible, and Democrats always look great. And so on, I became a little bit more emotional than I expected about this 2016 election. They're good at that, getting you emotional instead of logical.
I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
My friends were asking me if I was worried at all about being deported because of what Trump allegedly said about Mexican immigrants.
I am going to create a new special deportation task force focused on identifying and quickly removing the most dangerous criminal illegal immigrants in America who have evaded justice.
What he had said was taken out of context, but I did believe it at the time. But I did think it was odd that my liberal friends thought I was worried, given the fact that I'm not Mexican, nor an illegal alien. That was definitely something that bugged me, but it didn't necessarily switch my mind on Trump or the Republicans. But it definitely left something that would eventually make me change from one side to the other. My liberal friends seem to be putting all Spanish speakers into the same category, namely illegal immigrants. I didn't really have much in common with Mexico other than a common language. It was further away from my country than the United States was. I actually started meeting a lot more Mexicans in the United States, and a lot of them are my friends, but regardless, I never really felt close to the Mexican culture, and I started to get to know it while living in the United States. Now, when he won, I was pissed. Not because I hated him, not because I was angry at him personally. I just didn't understand how it happened. I didn't understand where people were getting their information because obviously MSNBC and CNN were misinforming me. I blamed all the people that voted for him for disregarding that information that I had been fed.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah, me too.
I think so poorly of them. And the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb. I'm better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage.
And all of the vitriol, all of the hatred that he was getting from the media and from people, all of that was coming after Trump and him personally and his family, I would think, well, he signed up for it. One day, though, I saw a picture of him in the White House lawn. He looked, what I would say, worried or sad or preoccupied. And I thought, this man has the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's a human being, and hundreds of thousands of people are hating him every day. And I couldn't figure out what were all the horrible things that he had done to deserve that kind of vitriol. The type of hatred I was seeing against President Trump, I could only describe as demonic. Yes, there was some anger, but there was some that was excessive. I grew up in Venezuela, and I witnessed people get angry. I know that very well. However, I felt the anger was justified, and it was never as hateful as I was seeing it here. When I saw this and I made all of these connections, I decided I needed to disconnect. I didn't want to add to his burden, no matter how much I disagreed with him. Then I started seeing people I knew express support for his policies and the results that he was getting while in government. People I respected. So I thought, well, he can't do everything wrong. I realized I couldn't think of any policies specifically that I disagreed with. I just mostly disagreed with his tweets and his abrasive way of speaking, his non-polished language. I do recognize that I have family members and friends that express themselves this way. That's when I started to change. That and the fact that I always consider myself more aligned with Republicans. While living in LA and in New York, I had to constantly listen to people bash Republicans, talk about them as if they were terrible people.
The credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading, you know, your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
All those lines on the map.
Only them elitists know where Ukraine is.
Knowing a lot of Republicans, I just couldn't agree. I think the progressive people overplayed their hand. They pushed it too hard and they demonized the right a little bit too much. And so that turned people off, including me. Then there was a cultural aspect, the identity politics, the idea that I had to think a certain way because of my gender or my cultural background or my nationality. And if my nationality had to have me think a certain way, it was certainly not aligned with the left.
And you ain't Latinos.
People sort of assumed I agreed with the caravan that was coming in from Central America and was planning to cross the southern border. People thought I was just for it, that I agreed all these immigrants should just be given free passage. 14,000 people should just be given free passage. And that the United States should just be accepting as many illegal immigrants as possible. That is usually not how legal immigrants think, just because for us, it has been such a long and arduous process that we don't necessarily like people just coming in and be given the same rights. We take our time earning that.
Asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
I think like Jordan Peterson when he says borders are reasonable and necessary.
Without borders, everything mashes into the same untenable state of undifferentiated chaos, and you can't live in that.
Then people thought I should just believe certain people because of their gender, that I agreed with this idea that we should just believe all women. Now guys, I went to an all-girls school. The idea that we should believe all women is a silly idea. Women are very much capable of manipulating and lying. And this is not to go after the women movement or the Me Too movement, but the idea that we should always believe women is strange to me. In fact, women can actually be better at manipulating than men. That's just the case. I think that is a skill that we developed because we didn't have the physical attributes. So no, I wouldn't just believe all women or anybody just because of their gender, their race, their skin color, or nationality. And I definitely wouldn't agree with the idea of voting anybody into office because of their gender. All of those things were pushing me further and further away from the left and from my symbolic alignment from the Democratic Party, which lasted about 5 minutes. There was a time that I align myself more with the Democrats for this idea that they were the more tolerant and more inclusive party. And suddenly I felt much more aligned with the right, with the conservatives. I didn't seek that out, it just happened. The things that the conservatives were saying sounded more true to me. They resonated with me a lot more. They were more logical arguments, simply put. I felt the left arguments were either very, very emotional, or they used this kind of intellectual verbiage, sort of just to confuse people into thinking, well, this sounds smart, so that must be the way. And so when I felt more aligned to the right, I suddenly felt that I was just neutral about Trump again. It took me being slapped in the face about the media. But when I realized how much the media was lying about Trump, how much this man was taking daily doses of hate and lies spoken about him, and yet he kept going. And so I started to grow appreciative of him. Not just I like his policies, but actually respect him a lot more as a person. I don't know if I could do what he's doing. I don't know if I could stand up and wake up early every day and keep working when he didn't have to. He didn't have to take this position. And I truly saw him doing his best to make sure that his country thrives as a whole. Not a particular group in his country, but the citizens of the country in general. And I wish we had a leader like that when I was growing up. And he was doing it for everyone, regardless how much half of the country was criticizing him and hoping that he would fail. He might not always be the most eloquent, but it seemed to me that he was working hard to put his country first. He didn't care about what people thought of him. He didn't care about what other leaders thought of him. He was putting his country first, not his reputation, his country. I also spent some time looking at past interviews of him, and I found that he was consistent in his beliefs, and I also found that he was genuine.
If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country.
The difference is that he's just older now and less interested in diplomacy. So his way of speaking is more abrasive and more blunt. That's why I feel like there's a very relatable human element in him. And I can recognize why he won. People were tired of the fake politician, the old political class. He is a catalyst for a change, for something better to come, not just in the United States, but most of the Western countries. He's a catalyst for being done with that establishment that had forgotten who they represented. They just pretended to care about who they represented. That's why there's such a mistrust for politicians. They had long ago stopped caring about those people that they were representing. And I don't think that's the case with Trump. Regardless of how many people say that about him, I do think that he is a catalyst of something new class of politician to come. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot something. That's why I look a little bit different now. If you had a similar experience, if you change your mind about Trump, if you change your mind about the Republicans, please share in the comments. I would really love to know what made you change your mind. What was it? Also, guys, I post every single day on my stories on Instagram. So if you'd like, I'd like to invite you. It's an invitation to go and follow me there. And of course, hit subscribe. I will be posting here every week, and I would love to hear your suggestions of what you would like me to talk about next. Cheers, guys.